I'll extend our thanks once again at the conclusion of the evening to Nicky Hager. Nicky Hager has indicated that he is more than ready to take questions. Now, can I please emphasise that he is asking for questions, as I am asking for questions. I am not asking for speeches. We do not want speeches. I've been in this position before. Please forgive me if I sound over the top. But there is a difference. As there is a difference between politics and dirty politics, there is a difference between questions and speeches. And I have to warn you that if you make a speech, I propose to interrupt you. It will be done rudely and in the manner of the Cameron Whale blog.
I'd like to ask a question, and it's to do with, please stand here, and I'd like to ask a question, and it's to do with the lovely people here who have all come out, obviously converted, right? Mostly converted. So they go home, go to sleep, still converted, kill a few trees, buy a book, get more converted. Now my idea, and I said to you, Nicky, Nicky, your audience is not allowing me. I'm 81 and I've been doing the protest for 40 years. So why did you tell me that you were not going to ask the audience to ring talkback? You said they were mad dogs, and yet your book is about mad dogs. You said that, and so does this John Minto over here. He says the same thing. Don't ring talkback. I think you're narcissistic. To be fair, you're narcissistic.
I'm sorry.
No, you're not sorry at all.
I cannot. Using the vast mental powers for which I am renowned, I cannot detect the question. Now, Penny, this has to be a question. 2 sentences, that's it.
Do you think many people are familiar with the concept that there are 2 offices of the Prime Minister, one being the party political, cover John Key's backside as the leader of the National Party, office of the Prime Minister, which is not subject to statute or regulation, versus the supposedly apolitical, impartial, high-level Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet. They're the ones who are supposed to do Official Information Act requests, and in my view, that is what needs sorting out, because the office of the Prime Minister is out of control. Would you agree with that? Would you agree with that?
I agree.
Nicky, how much interest are you getting from overseas media, and is it building?
How much interest am I getting from overseas media? Now, this is an interesting question, because really, when you write a book about New Zealand, you know, to be fair in sort of marketing terms, people think of Out of Tasmania and they glaze over straight away, of course. But one of the things I like about it is that there are So there will not be, these books will not sit on the bookshelf, in the bookshops of any other nation, okay? Obviously. But the thing is that we're talking about international issues here. We're talking about stuff which is not just in New Zealand, it's going to every country, and if we're lucky enough to find out about it in one country, people are interested. So, in fact, in the last few days, yesterday morning I was on Canberra radio. I've been interviewed from Germany. You've probably seen there were 2 articles in the British Guardian a couple of days ago. What this means, we might have seen, and what this means is that everybody is facing the same issues around the world. And so our experiences are worthwhile spreading further because people are having to deal with the same stuff.
Forgive the American accent, I've been here 40 years. Right around Oregon. Now, I'd like to know what avenues are available in New Zealand, what legal avenues are available for holding the office of the Prime Minister accountable in the way that Richard Nixon, who was even more arrogant, ended up having to resign. What do we have? Because a lot of us, I think, are thinking, if I speak up, then, you know, who's listening? What do we have?
A lot of politics is not covered by law. Politicians do what they want. That's the way our system works. However, if a member of the Prime Minister's office is breaking into the computers of another party, the police are investigating, and they should. The Ombudsman should be involved and will probably become involved in that. State Services Commission should be involved in that. Possibly the Audit Office should be involved in that. So, again, this comes down to the question, the issue which I raised before, which is to avoid a very common pessimism in politics. It's kind of, if I were talking about investigative journalism, the main thing I say to investigative journalism students and to middle-level journalists is, don't assume that things won't work. Go and try them. Don't let your own assumptions stop you. And it's exactly the same with the checks and balances and review procedures that we have in a country like ours. Don't say it's all stuffed. Don't presume that everybody's wrong. I'm not saying you do, but we shouldn't do that. We should actually look at the mechanisms which are there and use them now, and in this case after the election, and keep doing it. Yeah. And if I could add to that, I think that there are a lot of people who have been smeared and attacked, often by people the attacks were happening by people who were anonymous up till now, which will be being resolved in different ways, including through the courts, for many months or years to come yet, now that so much has come out about what's been going on.
Since you released the book, has there been one reaction that you've just thought, woohoo, booyah, killed it?
I've been anaesthetised by tiredness actually, but what usually happens, what you risk having happen in politics is that people are tribal. You know the psychology of this, and people in the National Party, who actually should be the ones who care most about what's in the book, say, I'm not going to read that rubbish as a sign of loyalty to their party. And other people will say, of course it's terrible, and tribalism in another direction. The things which have probably made me most pleased so far have been the National Party people I have met, or talked to, or heard about, who care about this stuff just as much as everyone else, and that's what will really create change. It'd be really great.
Hi there. Thanks to your book, we know that Cameron Slater helped organise.
Sorry, where are you? For you. Okay, thanks.
Okay, yeah. So we know that there's an aggressive smear campaign against specific workers of the Ports of Auckland striking at the time, and I was wondering if you could go into more detail about the organisations involved in that to see whether the actual business leaders involved in the Ports of Auckland were actually involved in organising with Cameron Slater that smear campaign, and whether that actually affected other strikes that were happening at the time, like the Tally's AFCO strike or anything, if there's anything in there.
When you get a body of information like I did for this, I squeezed everything I could out of it to find the important stories, and one of them, which was clearly an important story, was the Ports of Auckland. And I failed to find enough evidence to prove that Cameron Slater was being paid. I feel confident he was being paid, and actually, my own belief is, I believe that the people who said he wasn't paid weren't telling the truth, and I think it was a highly coordinated campaign involving both internal and external PR people working for the Ports of Auckland. And in the first 2 weeks of denials and with an election coming, we won't get to the bottom of that, but I would actually urge persistence on that, because that's an issue where I think the truth will come out. And I personally would love to be involved in finishing off that story. So, not nailed yet, will be nailed in the future, I believe.
First of all, well done.
Yeah.
My question is, if you are provided with the emails and information that the same kind of corruption is occurring in the judiciary, would you do a similar book? I would be glad to provide you much of the evidence you require.
Me too. The answer is, I'm a one-person band who works on about 12 or more subjects at once, which I think are important, and I have to do triage and decide which ones I care about the most. But of course, I'm even-handed. If I think there's something which needs to be revealed, I will do my best. Yeah.
Mr. Hager, over here. Hi, I'm Vinny Eastwood, Mr. News. I'm going to be filming this and publishing it on YouTube so everybody can see it again and all the people who couldn't come along. Now, the question I ask you is psychopathy. Do you believe that the psychopathic condition for creating money, power, believing their own lies is a huge problem within power structures like politics? Could it be exposed?
I don't know the answer, sorry.
Kia ora, and thank you, Nicky, for the service that you've done to this country. I actually have two questions.
And I'm really tired, so ask them one at a time.
One is, do you think there's any coincidence between Cameron Slater's visit to Israel and his slur on many other aspects of New Zealand life? The second thing is, you mentioned the importance of blogs, of books. We have one newspaper in this large city of ours, 1.5 million, and what is your view of that force in the prevailing voices of the media?
It's a rag.
I'm not going to answer the second question. I like the Herald, and I think the Herald has done a fantastic job on the issues in my book. And I think that if you looked at some other parts of the country, you would feel very lucky about the paper that you had. Right? So, there was a wicked, mischievous, supernatural being at work when Cameron Slater decided to go on a trip to Fiji to promote the regime there, and then a paid trip to Israel to try to whitewash the war there, exactly when he was suddenly going to be put on a spotlight on him like never before. And I think what we can see is that the thing with Cameron Slater is that he's allowed to do what he does. He can do that. But he has been empowered by his links to the Beehive. He is taken seriously, he is feared, he has great influence because people know that his information and his contacts aren't in his own head. They're going directly to the centre of government power in New Zealand. And he's been able to trade on that, on his blog, with the commercial work, and with his international travel. Like the same time my book came out, there was a story in the Fiji Sun where he was saying that the Fijian elections were fairer and better than we had in New Zealand. In other words, he was doing the PR work for the regime there. But this will never be the same again. That he was empowered, that actually, I don't think we should feel annoyed at Cameron Slater, we should feel annoyed at the people who empowered him. The good news is, and the reason why real information and exposés are worthwhile is that that's just come to an end, I believe. He won't stop blogging, he won't stop being himself, but the whole show is over, I believe.
Just one quick question for you, Nicky.
Where?
When you heard Warren Tucker, the former director of the SIS, defend the proposition that the Prime Minister is somehow furniture, and when you heard the director's account backed up by the Ombudsman, did you get the feeling that you were listening to, if I may quote another justice, an orchestrated litany of lies?
I don't like it. I've got a kind of a rule that I don't like attacking public servants, actually, so I don't want to do that. I do feel very strongly that we have had an amazing display of unwillingness to take ministerial responsibility for what's gone on. That's a real issue. One more, if you like.
What do you think Collins has got on King?
As a 19-year-old who's obviously I'm going to vote, what would you think is the most effective way for me to convince lots of my friends who don't care, don't want to vote, and aren't interested to realise that these things matter and to think that they can make a difference?
Yeah. I mean, it's a really big question, but what I would say is talk to them. Talk to them, actually lead. Lead by example. Show that you care, and they will start to care as well, I believe. And I've already said, I think on election day, especially for young people, I think that all over the country people should be organising get-togethers and then marching their friends down to try a new experience. That's what I think.
Now, I extended considerable praise to Nicky Hager in my opening. I think that I will now sound so much more sincere because it's not prepared. But I am overwhelmingly impressed by this remarkable man. He asked me once whether he could write a book with me. I didn't tell him that the one book I have written only sold about 500 copies. And I would love to do that, but I cannot think of the topic. I can tell you, Mr. Seymour, it will not be about the judiciary. One of the things we need in this country, in addition to those that Nicky Hager stipulated, is more people like him. Those people may not be as talented, they may not be as inquisitive, they may not be as clever, but they can be as determined to establish a morality, a political morality in this country that will remind us of the days gone by. We do not want to regress into a society of people who are on the make, who are powerful and misuse their power. And with more people like Nicky Hager, we will achieve something. I haven't asked Nicky Hager because I haven't had the opportunity, but I will be asking him whether I am mentioned in the and it would be a measure of the quality of the man that if I have been mentioned, he's chosen not to include it in his book. Apart from anything else, it would not have been interesting. So I want to conclude now by again thanking Nicky Hager for coming to Auckland and addressing you as he has. I know that I'm speaking to many who share my view that he is a remarkable man and that we need more of him. Please show again your appreciation.